Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the new thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
Good morning and welcome to Ministers Talking Tips. If it's 7 o'clock on the mountain time, it must be time for this program. And I'm so glad to say that I have the lovely Rev B with us this morning. Rev Briz is out and about doing his thing. And so we are here today, excuse me, to get you caught up on some things that you may have missed. And I'm being facetious because some of these things you cannot miss, right? I mean, they're just everywhere in the news. And so we're hoping that we can bring them about and give them a spiritual profile and just kind of make some things aware. How are you doing this morning, Rev B?
I'm great, Revsy. It's wonderful to be back here. I always enjoy these conversations. They're so illuminating and interesting and fun. So, yeah, we got lots to talk
Yay!
about today.
Yes, and I tell you, there's so much, I don't even know where to start. But I think the appropriate place to start is in the Middle East, just
Yes.
to just to give, first and foremost, let's send some love, some light, some healing, uh, and anything else, some food, some clothes, whatever we need to kind of lessen the uh, the sting of what's going on over there. Because I think the whole world now is beginning to cry for a pause point. The UN is doing it. Uh, Blinken is doing it. I mean, and so it's going to be interesting. I'd like to hear, what you think about that whole. How do we heal that? So we know what it is. We don't need to elucidate that. We need to start beginning to figure out how do we heal that situation.
Well, and that's where I think the spiritual conversation is so powerful because if we can, like, if I can, in my own heart and my mind and my life, choose to be loving, compassionate of myself and others, then I show up in the world in a more peaceful way. I think there's a lot of fear, and the media is perpetuating that fear. And that, the minute you start pitting people against each other, an explosion's going to occur.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way and talk about insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We've been at war since the beginning of time. Right now, there's what, 110 conflicts in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do we think we're resolving? The only winners here, weapons manufacturers.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're getting rich.
They're getting rich. And an interesting point there that you bring up, this pitting against one another. So right now, the Palestinians are pitted against Israel.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all of the news outlets, whether they're print, whether they're streaming or whatever, they're pitted against the other news outlets for the best story or the most in-depth thing, whatever that thing is. And it's like they're so uh, 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 their mindset is so set on being the first one to report something, as opposed to, am I reporting the right thing? Am I doing that with integrity? And how does what I do perpetuate the loss that we see going on, or how does it help resolve it?
Yeah, it doesn't resolve anything. And it's interesting because I went to college to become a journalist. And here I am. Ministry, same thing.
Yes.
But when I was in school, when I was in college, and this is going back, 1,000 years or so, when I was in college, we were taught who, what, where, when, why, period.
Mm,
Do
mhm.
not editorialize, or you get a great big zero on your paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
All we hear today is opinion, 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 opinion. Depends who you're listening to, who on CNN or Fox or the BBC or where. They're all editorializing everything. So where are the facts,
Yes. Yes.
right? Where's
And
the humanity?
there is none. I mean,
There
let's
is.
just be honest. I won't be that bold. There's very little. Let me put it that way. There's very little humanity. I mean, and now they're beginning to see outbreaks in the Middle East
Yeah.
or in the Palestine Israel region in the West Bank, right? So now you got things going. I mean, Gaza is just. I mean, here's the thing that really kills me. So we see all the devastation that happened over in Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
Cities decimated. We see
Yeah.
the same thing happening now in Gaza.
Hmm.
And so at the end of this, i.e., both of those, people who are going to make out like a bandit are construction companies and material companies and
Hmm.
infrastructure companies. All these companies who have to go back in and build these places back that will take decades
Yes.
will set up a pipeline for to put the same people in power and just play the shell game. And it just seems so obvious to me. And I'm like, don't we see this?
Well, and it is truly the definition of insanity to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a new result. And when it comes to war, I don't get it. I really don't get it. I think the presidents and prime ministers of countries should fight it out between the two of them. Leave the people out of it. You two get locked in a room. The last man standing, because it's probably a man, last man standing wins. Like, do you think there would be war? I
Yeah,
don't. I think they
yeah.
would find peaceful resolutions because they don't want to bloody their own hands.
Really quick, really quick. And just speaking of war, I don't know. I know you up in Canada, but they had a
Yeah.
war here the other day on the debate scene with the Republican candidates, or five of the Republican candidates, and of course, uh, Donald Trump was not there. He was
No,
busy trying to deal with his legal case. They called the two sons and the daughter on the stand to deal with
wow,
that whole piece. And when I
fascinating.
looked at it, you talked about op-eds, right? Afterwards, everybody was op-eding, and I'm like, I'm looked at this. I don't need an op-ed. This is all stupid.
It is. It really is.
I mean,
The bonus of Trump is for all the comedians in the world who don't have to write any comedy anymore. They just repeat what he says. I'm not sure
you
what
know,
they're
I
gonna do when it's all done.
I know it's. I sat there and now I will admit there was some interesting perspectives that came up that I think uh should be followed up on
Mhm.
in a real debate where people respect and listen and not try to make sound bites. Um,
Does
I
that
know that
exist?
seems odd.
Is that possible to have a debate that actually is fair, reasonable, and gives us information?
You
Hmm.
you would hope so. You would hope we'd be able to figure that out because there were some points that I think would have really been good to say, go off script and say, now that's a good point. Let's go down and give everybody 2 minutes. The part of the challenge was for a few of the participants, they were just they were on a stump, right? They were rhetoric, and they never got to the point of the question.
Never do. They never do. I get so frustrated with debates. I've told my husband if there's a debate on, I'm leaving the room because all they're going to do is tell me what the other guy did wrong.
Yes.
No one's going to tell me what they're going to do, why I should vote for them. That information never comes out. It's always,
And
oh, let me point fingers.
yeah, it's almost like, why are we doing this? It doesn't help me in making a decision if I
Nope.
need to make a decision.
Yeah.
Um, And so, it's going to be, and I think the leader of the bunch, DeSantis, right, is
Yeah.
trailing Trump. I mean, Trump has 50 some odd points percentage wise,
Yeah.
and I think DeSantis may have 19 or something, 16, 19. I mean, the whole lot of them, if you add a whole lot of them up, they don't get nowhere close to what Trump had.
Isn't that wild?
And I'm like, what in the world?
How did we
Now,
get here?
how do we, and imagine what it would be like right now if Trump was in charge.
Yeah.
That, I mean, right now, I saw this morning, the Arab League, um, the crown, the king of Saudi Arabia, or the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, one of those, are calling for a ceasefire.
Yeah.
Right? They can't even get in. They're saying they open the borders up for 6 hours to bring in supplies, but they got to check every one of those trucks for bombs and power. Like, what is 6 hours going to do?
Not much. Not much in the lives of people whose homes, businesses, families are destroyed. How do we get any of that back? You can't.
And when you think about those situations and Trump being in charge, trying to orchestrate, uh, 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 I don't know. I mean, I'm prayerful, but I'm very cautious about what's going on because we just started bombing Syria. We've gotten nuclear subs in the area now. We have aircraft carriers in the area now. So I think we need to be praying for some calm and some, hopefully the atrocities have been so great that everybody is saying, let's do a pause, let's sit down, let's
Yes,
let's make another way. Let's
absolutely.
make another
I'm
way.
just reading Linda's comment. Thank you, Linda. That's most debates I've ever watched. The debates seemed like a bunch of well-dressed fifth graders, each trying to get attention. I didn't learn anything. That's why I don't watch debates anymore. It's a waste of time, and it's
Yeah,
so frustrating. You nailed it. Fifth
yeah,
graders? Yeah, probably.
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
agreed.
It's like it's just throwing 2 3 hours down the drain.
It is. It really
Yeah,
is. And it's not getting us anywhere. It's like if we want to find solutions, I think we have to sit down with each other. We have to put everybody in the room that is in disagreement
yeah,
and find a way to walk together through this mud that is pulling us down and finding strength and compassion, and instead of dehumanizing everybody so we
mm-hmm,
can feel justified
mm-hmm,
killing them, let's humanize everyone and begin to have conversations that will allow for the uniqueness of each one of us to be realized so we can find a way to come together. This
yeah.
separating isn't working. Had never
No.
has.
Well, and you know, part of that is we being the collective, we do
Mhm.
not see life as a whole, as a wholeness, as one thing.
No, we
We
don't.
think it's this, the scientific method is a great method. It has brought us some wonderful things.
Mhm.
But when the scientific method is devoid of any higher understanding, we get into this cutting and measuring and separating to understand things. And when we've done that, we think we understand the whole, but we don't. It's like I can understand from a car perspective, I can understand the carburetor and the engine and the brakes, but if I don't have that stuff working together as a whole, I don't have a car. I just got a bunch of parts. It is the putting together of a wholeness that makes the car. And that's the same thing about humanity in this world we live in. And I don't know
Yes.
why that seems to be such a foreign or very difficult idea to handle.
And even in our families, like, we
Yeah,
don't even have to go overseas to see the separating the "I'm right, you're wrong" stuff. We just can go home
yeah.
and see it right there. Yeah.
And as I was looking at the debates,
Mhm.
there the news flash came that Senator Joe Manchin up in West Virginia has decided not to run for reelection again. He's a high powered Democrat. He's 76 years old, which all right, I get it. You should be retiring. Let's give a young person
Mhm.
or somebody else a chance.
Yeah.
Maybe you become a mentor or whatever. But the challenge now is the Democrats are like, okay, when he goes, that's going to put us in an imbalance, of who's going to be in control. And so now the fight is on, if you will, to
Yeah.
find a Democrat to run against who other Republicans are going to run against for that seat and for the Senate. And here again, we're doing this tug of war thing, and nothing's happening.
Do you think because I know the youth of both Canada and the United States are quite concerned about a lot of things in our world at the moment. Do you think the youth are ready to step up and begin voting a whole new way in order to switch the balance of power so that it becomes more um, along the lines of what humanity needs, wants, and desires? Like, is there a possibility that they're fed up and will actually go out and vote and make a change?
I, you know, I think the jury's still out in that I think a lot of the young people are somewhat apathetic, right?
Mhm.
They've seen their parents and they've seen their grandparents uh, pitch a way of living
Mhm.
that's supposed to get them where they want to go, success or whatever. And they're looking at their parents and grandparents and says, ain't worked too well for you.
Nope.
Uh, why you expect me to follow that path, right? And so now they're branching out into new ways of being involved, new ways of getting information, new ways of of making a decision to be involved or not. And it's interesting because the what's his name, Ramaswamy, the young man, he's 38. He was on the debate, Republican candidate,
Mhm.
and he's been getting slammed, right? Okay, he went after Nikki Haley, and he made some very pointed statements, but he had one or two good ideas that should be followed up on. Um,
Yeah.
and I think he someone like him who he seems to be a little too polished for me personally. He seems to be a snake oil salesman, and I guess when you get to be a multimillionaire, billionaire, whatever he is, that's what happens if you're not careful. But to get these young people involved, I think we have to begin to put them in control some kind of way.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I mean, because we know these young people are smart. We've
Yeah.
trained them to be smart. We've sacrificed to get them the best education, the best opportunities, to
Yeah.
put them in the environment. So now they still need to grow into a lot of it,
Mhm.
but we know they are prepared for the moment.
Yeah.
But it's like in a football game, the understudy is always on the bench saying, "Put me in, coach. Put me in. I'm ready. Put me in, coach." And that's what I think they're saying now, but we're not doing that.
No, we're hanging on to those old white guys because, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And Linda said, I love what Linda says here. Power and control is the theme of politics. It is time for a shift,
Yes.
seen and living as of the whole from the head, from the I'm sorry, from
Heart,
the heat
maybe.
out.
Probably heart,
Heart.
maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know. I'm somewhat baffled, and when I think about this whole shell game that's being played, I know next week in San Francisco, believe it or not. President Xi is supposed to be here from China, and him and Biden are supposed to meet. Not sure what they're talking about, but I can kind of speculate that they don't want them to get involved, right, on any side. They don't want them on Russia's side. They don't want them on it. They want them out the game because they understand that manpower-wise, we cannot stop China. I mean,
True.
let's just be honest. And
So what if
so,
we stop taking sides?
well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, why don't we work together? And as Linda said, it's because the power and control, right? If we really look at it.
I want to control what's going on. I want to be the number one because we think that's possible. The
Yeah.
truth is it's not, and it's not sustainable. We know that. Historically, we just watch the cycles continue,
Yeah.
beating on each other, hating on each other, finding reasons to separate rather than unify. And that's taking us down a pretty dark hole. And I don't see us getting out of it unless, like Linda says, we shift.
Yeah.
It's time to shift how we're doing everything.
Yeah. And it's kind of odd to say. I mean, we're what effectively almost 3 years beyond COVID,
Yeah.
right? We're 4 years beyond George Floyd and that whole thing.
Yeah.
And it appears not much has changed. I mean,
Mhm.
we're still having problems with police overstepping their bounds in some cases. We still have racial issues
Mhm.
that are obvious issues that we're spending way too much time trying to justify. And we had, and I think we still have, if we can just keep in our minds that could happen again, a perfect opportunity to start working for wholeness.
I agree completely. And I think, when we look at why people do some of the things they do, well, it comes back again to that separation. If if I'm, if I'm fearful, I'm going to react rather than act. And I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to probably make mistakes because my fear is running. And where does that come from? It's, we take our little children and we indoctrinate them into a belief system.
Mm-hmm.
We teach them how to hate,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
to separate. Let's teach them how to come together. Let's be that bridge. I was listening to Bridge Over Troubled Water the other day, and I thought,
Mm.
yeah, let's be that bridge over the troubled water that is the human race at the moment on the planet. Let's be the bridge of unifying, of bringing love to the table, realizing that one isn't right and one wrong, both and. Let's find a
Yeah.
way to have a conversation that goes deep and allows each person to be heard, and then to find consensus or common ground, or there's got to be a better way than what we're doing.
And finding common ground should be very easy because the common ground is this planet.
Yes. Yeah,
And
we're
I
all
don't care
walking.
how many attempts and how much technology we're getting to the moon and we're getting to the Mars.
Yeah.
They don't have a ship big enough to take all of us, which means, okay, guess who gonna be on the first 2, 3, 4 ships? Not us, right?
It'll be those
And
big white guys who have been running the show.
and and we are destroying our home
We are. We are.
at the price of, as you said before we got on the air, of consumerism. How much more money can I make?
How much more stuff can I buy?
I got
Let
way
me
too
fill
much. I need
another
to get rid.
storage locker.
Yes. Oh my God. They're building storage places like, I'm like, what the heck?
Oh, I know.
I mean, I'm totally serious. Probably within my neighborhood, within let's say, a 5 mile circumference radius,
Yep.
which you could walk in an hour, hour and a half,
Yes, you
there
can.
has to be there has to be, I don't know, 15, 20 doggone of varying size and technology storage units.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. My husband and I just moved this summer, and when we moved, like our basement was full of stuff, boxed stuff that had been boxed up for the 6 years we lived in this place, for the 2 years we lived in the place before that, and the 12 years we were in the place before that. And I said to my husband, we're downsizing, so it all has to go.
Yes.
And I'm not renting a storage locker for anything. There is nothing that we need that bad. Man, we got rid of truckloads of stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
donated it where it was needed, and that
Yeah.
felt so good.
Yeah.
Uh,
It that's one thing the saints and the mystics always say is travel light, right?
Travel light,
And
travel light.
and
Yeah.
our society mandates that we travel heavy.
But isn't that exactly what keeps us
Yeah.
pressed down,
Yeah.
obedient?
Yeah.
Because now we've got to work that much harder to cover all those extra expenses. We've got to work that much harder to try and gain the thing our neighbor has because that'll make us happy. We're so busy trying to fill this void, our
Yeah.
humanity, that
Yeah.
we're stuffing it full of food or stuff, and
Yeah.
we're still in pain.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And I
mhm.
mean, when we think about, we talked a lot about politics and conflict today, and I think the 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 motto, I think, is travel light on this planet, because when
Yes.
we look at where, the Amazon is called the lungs of the planet, if you will.
Yep.
And when we are beginning to cut down the trees in the Amazon to plant soybeans, I'm like, okay, you're cutting down old growth trees that God knows how long they've been growing, right? Who
Mhm.
the ecosystem that you're destroying to plant soybeans, um, in the long run is going to be a challenge.
What's gonna kill us, it's gonna kick us off this planet is what it's gonna do. Because trees take carbon out of the air,
Mhm.
out of the atmosphere. We need our tree in the city of Toronto, Toronto, biggest city in Canada, it's considered, everybody goes, "Oh, yeah, the concrete jungle." We're not allowed to cut down trees.
Nice.
Toronto is one of the most lush cities I have ever been in. There are trees everywhere, big, big old trees, and you're not allowed to remove them. The fine is huge if you do, if you get caught, because people do
Mhm.
can't chop it down on your own property.
Wow. Yeah. See, and I mean, we should start, and I'm gonna be dogmatic and say we should start, uh,
Mhm.
really looking at conservation and ecology, because it all starts with the planet.
It
It
all
all
starts with the planet.
right?
And we know the planet will survive because COVID showed us that. Take
Yes.
the human out of the equation and watch the planet flourish. So if we
Yes.
continue what we're doing, we're all going to die. And then the planet's going to just rebirth itself lusciously, beautifully, fabulously. And the process will start over again. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's as we start coming to the end of the time for the show. That is a great. Uh, I'm trying to find the words to capsulize that, and because I, the Earth doesn't care
nope.
whether we behave or not,
No, it doesn't. Neither does
and
God. I'm just going to say yes to you, whatever you want to do. This energy is just going to go, oh, you want to go in that direction? No problem. Here you go.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
consequences. Enjoy.
yeah, you know, and we have the basic principles of New Thought is choices and consequences, whether
Yeah.
those are choices in consciousness or choices in action. No matter which one you choose, there is a consequence
There
for
is.
that.
There totally is. We
And
live like there is no consequences.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
That needs
we forget often that cause and effect are not always closely related. We live in this fast-paced, high-tech world, and we think cause and effects are right there, but they're not.
no.
And I just think about put Agent Orange over in Vietnam on the jungles to defoliage so that they could fight another war, right? It was expedient, but they didn't see the effect of that when we have soldiers coming home with all kinds of diseases and land that's barren that you can't even use anymore because
Yeah.
of this short-sightedness and this cause and effect lapse in memory.
And I think that's how we live as human beings, it seems, at least in North America. That's my experience, is that, everything is about immediacy. If we watch the
Hmm.
advertising, the same furniture stores will say, oh, last weekend for the big sale. And then the next weekend, last weekend for the big sale. And then, oh, Black Friday sale. And then another, it's like, it's always happening. Why do we feel like we have to
Right,
race in and
right.
consume? Why aren't we just taking a pause and maybe hanging out with each other, having a latte or
Yes,
glass of water? Like
yes.
let's redefine how we show up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, our time is coming to an end, and today is Veterans Day here in the United States, and so we do want to give a shout out to those individuals who, for whatever reason, has decided to take on the service, whether they of supporting and protecting the country, and we give honor to those who may have lost their lives or have been maimed or whatever in these conflicts, and it's a great time to honor the veterans, but to in the same breath figure out how we don't have to send any more people to war.
Exactly. And one of the things that tomorrow is Remembrance Day in Canada. And that's when we remember all the people that we've lost to war. And for me, when I was last in the US, we took a drive around and we ended up going to um, a cemetery for fallen soldiers. And my
Mm,
heart broke.
yeah,
The woman who was showing us around, we were in Kansas, and as she was showing us around, she said, the United States loves to kill their young men. And we drive into this place, and there's all these white markers. I burst into tears. It's like, how do we do that
yeah, yeah,
over and over again?
yeah. How do we send our best and brightest to be
Hmm.
cut down before they even reach their prime? uh
Have a
and we
service.
yeah and we don't have the systems in place to help them when they get back with PTSD or depression or addictions, of all these horrors that they have to witness and perpetrate. So we have to find another way,
We
um
do.
because um this way we can't sustain. And
No, we
so
can't. Love is the answer. That's
love is the answer. That is the absolute love, and wholeness is the answer. And so as we get ready to sign off, and allow the other programs to come on today, there's always tons of stuff happening on New Thought Media. You can go to www.ntmedia.org and see all of the programs that are happening today. We have the fireside chat at 6. There's the good news at 5.
I'm doing the good news today.
Yes. So tap in, tune in, and turn on to Rev B at 5 on the Mountain Time Zone to catch the good news, because there is good news, and we should begin to focus on that. But at the same time, not forget the issues that we're counterbalancing with the good. And so Rev B, thank you for being here. It's been a wonderful morning. I always love the time with you. It goes by way too fast.
It really does. I
And
love
and
you,
and
my friend, and I'm
thank
glad
you,
to be
thank
here.
you. And we look forward to doing this again. And everyone, have a wonderful weekend. And remember, as Rev B said, love is the answer.
Love is
Have a
the
wonderful
answer.
day. Peace and blessing.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.